start. Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Shema Asiri, and I manage corporate sustainability in Zain, Bahrain. It is my pleasure to be today's Startup Morning's casual getting together host. Before we move to today's topic and I introduce my awesome guests, I have two things to say. The first one is if you're new here in this space, Startup Mornings are organized by Startup Magazine, which is one of Bahrain's most prominent platforms for startups in the region. You can follow them on Instagram at Startup Magazine, on Twitter, Facebook, and LinkedIn to stay informed about these events and the latest startup news and more. The second thing that I want to say is if you are in this space, I want to invite you and you are a Bahraini woman and you're looking to start your own business, learn new skills, new knowledge, take your business to the next level, I'm inviting you to join Startup Workshop 2, which is a series of free practical workshops organized by Startup Magazine and funded by the US State Department through MEPI, and is made possible through strategic partnerships with Temkeen, Zain Bahrain, Manama Shapers, Obai Hill, and Majra. Now that I'm done with that, let me go back to today's topic. So today's Startup Morning topic is, how can women be better represented in tech in Bahrain? And with me today to explore this are three brilliant women entrepreneurs who have each started their own business and ventured in the tech field and started their own startup. Now, my guests today are Najma Ghuloom, the co-founder of Majra, Latifa Alkhalifa, co-founder of Clever Play, and Nouf Abdulla, co-founder of Regnum Studio. So good afternoon, ladies. Welcome here.
Good afternoon.
Good afternoon. So it's my pleasure to have you. We're going to have a little bit of a discussion. I have a couple of questions to ask you. Hopefully that'll take about 20-30 minutes, and then we're going to open the floor for questions. Awesome. So the first thing I want to do is I'm going to go around and ask each one of you to give me a little bit of a profile info about yourself, about your business, and then what made you start up your career in tech? Like what made you launch your tech startup? So I'm going to go counterclockwise on my screen, and I'm going to start with Najma.
So my startup is basically called Majra. Majra, if you're not familiar with it, is a recruitment-based platform, and with a specific aim towards helping millennials, young job seekers, people who are starting off their careers or looking to change their careers, supporting them throughout that journey. And Majra started about 4 years ago. Back in 2016 is where we first initiated the ideation of Majra, getting started on that. And the reason behind that was basically it's just personal experiences, personal challenges, and the gaps that me and my co-founder Mahmoud both found in our struggle of, or the journey of job hunting, the challenges we faced, the questions that we came across that we couldn't find answers for. And we just wanted to start this together for people like us who were navigating that path of figuring out what you want to do with your life and your career. So yeah, that's how Majra began.
Perfect, awesome. Nouf, I'll give you the microphone.
Yeah. So my startup is called Regnum Studio. Although I come from a business marketing background, our startup is a game development company where we develop games, applications that actually make some sort of an impact. So some of them for fun, some of them is for addressing some social issues or mental health issues, for example. And we love to take people, teach them, and then give them the right tool and the network they need to explore their opportunities by themselves. We started this as a uni project, and I think it was maybe 2014 or 15. And it was just a game. And then we took it and competed worldwide. And then we started traveling around the world, just showcasing talent. So now I want to bring this back home and give people the platform to, shine bright and create awesome stories by themselves.
Awesome. Thank you so much. Sheikha Latifa?
Yeah, so, social ed tech entrepreneur, the business or the startup is called Clever Play. And really, Clever Play is on a mission to inspire and empower children with the STEM skills that they need to pursue 21st century opportunities. STEM basically stands for science, technology, engineering, arts, and math. And, if I were to pinpoint exactly why we started this, I think it would have to go back to the birth of my nephew, Ali. I think it was just a defining moment in my life and the life of my co-founders, that we decided that, unfortunately, education, traditional education, is not keeping up with the times. And instead of kind of blaming, X, Y, and Z for not, bringing in a solution to this problem, we realized, okay, well, why not us? Because we wanted to make sure that Ali has opportunities to learn and expand his mind outside of school. And so it really started with offering the best possible learning opportunities for Ali. And alhamdulillah, we were able to scale that up to, 4,000 children inside and outside Bahrain so far.
Interesting, very nice. I want to take the next question actually and link it to the topic of this gathering. And I want to know, what's your opinion about women? Are they fairly represented in the tech field in Bahrain? What do you think? Since you're all heavily involved in the tech field, what do you feel about that? So who would like to comment on this? Najma, go ahead.
Since I've been involved in the space for a few years now, so initially when we first began, it was barely any women in the rooms that I would get into. So initially it was it was a different kind of space for me to understand. It was just rooms filled with men, any events that we would have, workshops, all of it. Just I'd probably be like the second or the third woman in the room. But now, alhamdulillah, recently there has been an increase. There has been a lot of women entrepreneurs starting up. So that's good to see. Like there has been growth, and that personally that I've witnessed. But definitely there is a long way to go. I would say there is way more space for growth, not just for women, but women-centric businesses, women-centric business ideas and innovations to come up. So there's definitely a lot of scope there that needs to be tapped into.
I want to ask you, since you mentioned that when you just first started, you were like one of the few women in the room. Did you feel any discrimination back then? Were you faced with any kind of difficulties when you wanted to raise funds with board meetings? Did you feel that you were discriminated against, I would say?
Not discrimination exactly. It's just kind of making your voice heard was a little more, like it took a little more effort, I would say. Just making your presence felt, being noticed took a little more effort. It's not, I don't think it was like, it came from a place of discrimination. It just was the norm, I would believe. And yeah, it just took some getting used to. And then, yeah, I think it was more of a subconscious things, minor things here and there, and not discrimination as such. Yeah, that was my personal experience, though.
Yeah. Sheikh Latifa, do you want to comment on my question about if women are fairly represented in the tech field?
Yeah, I think just to build on what Najma was saying, I think there's a lot more awareness now and more representation for sure, but there is a long way to go as well. And honestly, like I'm a big advocate for starting early, because at the end of the day, when we're talking about women in tech, we want to make sure that we have enough role models for the younger ones to be able to see and emulate. So like the saying goes, you can't see what you can, or you can't see what you can be, basically. And so if you see the individual that you aspire to be like, you're more inclined to follow suit as well. So I'm a big believer in making sure that we put a spotlight on, women in technology, to be able to make sure that girls that are seeing them, whether in newspapers, TV, magazines, social media, can aspire to be like them and realize that Technology is not necessarily just, a male-dominated field. And in fact, women have a lot to bring into the table. So with that, I think one thing that we need to do is lower the barrier of entry, so that women are encouraged to get into the tech fields. And I think once we do that, I think we're going to see even more representation across the board.
Across the board, correct. You've actually touched on a subject that I had another question for you, but since you've spoken about it, let me go into that. You spoke about girls and that we have to introduce this to girls at a very young age. And I know that you're working with SCW and with Zain as well on the girls tech camp. So do you see that since you've started this, do you see a resistance with the girls towards entering this program? And then how did it change from before and after? Do you think the engagement and the interest has increased from girls?
Oh yeah, absolutely. I think, so far, like I said, we've served over 14,000 children. Half of those have been girls. And with this particular program that we're running together, Girls for Tech, oftentimes you'd find girls kind of questioning whether tech is for them, right? It's like,
Correct.
oh, maybe it's just like boys things. Maybe it's not something that I would like to do. But then once you start to inspire and empower them that how technology can actually change their lives and can have an impact on the world, they start realizing that this is cool too. Like you would hear from a lot of girls, and this is the reaction that we've been getting from a lot of the girls in the program, is that, wow, I coded my own website, or, I launched my own app. Or once they realize that they have the power to be able to learn this, and that this is not just, for boys, we're not just talking about the hard skills here, which is coding and computational thinking, etc. But we're also talking about the soft skills, the raising their confidence levels and making them STEM confident and STEM capable. And so once we kind of turn that table around and kind of ignite that switch that you can do this too, and we believe in you. I think then it's just like, we've expanded their minds and inspired them to think even beyond what they thought possible.
And I think it's also about making them feel that they are equal. I think a lot of things come from within, because we think that we're not equal, and that they take it with them till they grow up. Nouf, I'll go now to you and I'll ask you exactly the same questions. Do you think women are fairly represented in the tech field in Bahrain?
I'll have to agree with both. When at the beginning there weren't a lot of girls, which was one of the reasons why I actually started the whole thing, because I wanted to see were there other game developers that were females, whether they're coding it, whether they're like the artists, the musicians. I wanted to see, is there an actual representation and assets here in the Middle East, not just in Bahrain. And at the beginning, there weren't a lot, but then all of a sudden I was unlocking these doors with people, with women around the region who are not just, some of them have their own startups, but some of them are a part of a team. And some of them, like me, for example, the majority of our core team is men and I'm the only female. But it changes nothing. I'm lucky that in our industry, it's more about your skills, not about your gender or background or nationality or anything. So what we are trying to do in Regnum or in our community is to teach you the soft skills and the hard skills of everything, not just coding, but also if, let's say, you want to be a part of the industry, but all you can contribute is storytelling, then we will teach you how to do storytelling. We will try and teach you as many things as possible. And the fun part is that initially we were focusing on people in universities that were on our level, or maybe people in high school, but all of a sudden now we have kids that are interested. They used to come to events and ask us, have you done this? We're like, yes, how did you do it? So we're getting interest from the kids. And I do agree that we need to teach them at a young age, and we need to teach them that it's all about your skills. Everything is there for you. Opportunities is there, support is there. Just show them the right way to do it and, see where they grow after it.
Interesting. I think in the industry that you're in particular, at least in my mind, is very male dominated. Like I grew up thinking gaming is for boys in particular. So I'm sure as a developer as well, it would be very difficult, or you would face a bit of difficulty to integrate or to feel accepted within that community. Is that so?
When we talk about the gaming industry, so there are two sections. There's the game development, and then there's the esports, which is more plain and competitive and all that. The reality is it's kind of 50-50, the representation. So it's almost an equal representation. It's just a matter of...
is this worldwide or in Bahrain as well? Does it apply to Bahrain?
This is a worldwide thing. In Bahrain, there are surprisingly a lot of game developers that are female and gamers that exist. It's just a matter of breaking that barrier of not being scared that you'll be discriminated and being confident and not worrying that, oh, if I come out, people will not take me seriously. That was literally my journey. When I started, I was worried that, like, you know, in uni, when I would play games with the guys, that they wouldn't take me seriously, but it was completely the opposite. It was very supporting. It's a very nice environment. So one of the things we want to put out there is that the industry is welcoming and it's 50-50 and there is nothing to be afraid of. So just, you know, we have a lot of talent. Again, a lot of amazing people here in Bahrain that do a lot of fantastic work. It's just some of them are a bit shy. So we need to break that barrier of don't be shy, come up and, you know, show the proper representation.
Yeah, I think that takes me back again to feeling that a lot of the barriers could be internal rather than external as well. And it's due to upbringing and society and how women are conditioned into particular roles. And that's where things like clever play and particular, I would say, programs for girls can make a difference, and education at a younger age. Now, my next question is open as well to all, would be, what are the obstacles that you faced or still facing, and how can you overcome them to create a better tech scene for women in Bahrain? Who would like to take this question? Najma, you know, I think because you're handling, I would say, a job portal, maybe you could give me a little bit of insight when it comes to women in the tech or hiring women in tech, and what are their obstacles?
When it comes to the job market and the graduates that we interact with, there is a good ratio of male to female graduates generally, but also specifically in tech. In terms of the obstacles that, especially like when it comes from a job market perspective, the challenges would be not the lack of learning opportunities, I would say. It's just people graduate universities, they get their basic education, but after that, there are very few opportunities for them to grow that knowledge, and specifically with tech, because it's always so evolving and it's so fast paced, they really need to keep up with that. So it's just once they graduate universities, what happens when it comes to their professional growth and their skill growth, there is some sort of a gap in there, which eventually translates to gap in the job market and their opportunities that they would be getting in their careers as well. So, and every time like we meet with different stakeholders within the ecosystem and outside, like this is one of the first things that we mentioned, that this is a challenge that's real and that's happening, and it's affecting a lot of our talented young people here. So it is being addressed. It is something that is being noticed and that everyone is studying. Different players are studying it and trying to rectify that and trying to basically come up with solutions for that. But yeah, I think that would be a big one, is the learning curve or the lack of learning opportunities that they have to keep up with the global standards, I would say as well. Because specifically when we have globalized business coming in Bahrain, they have specific talent needs that sometimes we might not be able to meet with our local talent base. And it's not because of lack of talent, it's because we just need the right tools to equip them.
Correct. I completely agree with that. Sheikh Latifa, I'll go back to you and ask you a question. What do you think that the startup ecosystem could do to include more females in the tech industry?
Yeah, so I think they're already doing a good job, to be honest, in terms of just, you know, making sure that there are multiple events, and and I've been to many of these events, and I know that there are a lot of female founders and co-founders that also are there. So I would say, you know, some of the things that they can do additionally would be maybe more awareness in terms of just like even from the investor side of things, just more investor education on, women-led businesses, women-led startups. I think there's a little bit of I guess a mismatch there that could be course corrected, I think, with education. What else? I think.
Do you think investors are more reluctant to invest in women-led startups than male-led startups?
Well, I mean, again, this is not my opinion. That's a fact. Worldwide, it's an absolute fact, in that investors would prefer oftentimes men over women. Now, this is, again, we don't have statistics to back this up here in Bahrain, but I know worldwide that is the case. And so, and so I think, on a global level, definitely there's a lot to be done, but also on a local level. Let's see, what else? I think, like I said before, shining the spotlight, I think, is very important, because making sure that we have the role models are there, they're visible, we can see them. Continuing to support, like through, the accelerators to develop female entrepreneurs, especially in the early stages, I think is important. And obviously just continuing on with the events, and I think the events of the education bit, I think, is the most important. And what you've mentioned about overcoming your own internal, sometimes self-doubt, I think that's always a big one. So making sure that women can see the career prospects that are available to them. I think that's one thing that, oftentimes women don't really know what's out there, what's available. And so I think it's important to be able to shed light on the different skill sets that are needed. And like Nouf was saying, that, today we're talking about skills. We're not necessarily talking about gender or nationality. And so we want to make sure that, that women can compete with those skill sets, in the tech industry, but also in other industries. And maybe if I were to add one more thing, I would say, oftentimes when I speak to a lot of women, even if they have the tech background, sometimes, that tech background or their education background in technology doesn't necessarily translate to work that is in technology. So they would find themselves, with a degree in tech, but they're working in a completely different field. And so here's where I think more awareness in terms of job opportunities, especially the private sector, coming in and realizing that, okay, no, we need these skill sets, and you don't necessarily have to give up your degree in technology to just to find a job, So I think once we start to close that gap, I think there's, it'll start changing.
A lot to do. It's funnily you're mentioning this, because like I've graduated from an engineering degree, but I'm working in something completely different, even though I did start my career at a tech. But after a couple of years, I was like, no, I need to change it. I'm not sure if it was because of the pressure of feeling that it's a male-dominated industry, or the requirement of the job was a bit too much for me. But funnily enough, at that point, everybody in the company that used to work for tech, or majority as developers, were women. So they are actually women out there who are very capable in the STEM and the tech field, but they just need to believe a little bit more in themselves. Nouf, I go back to you, and I want to ask you, have you ever throughout your career felt like you wanted to give up? And if so, what made you want to continue moving on or keep going?
Absolutely. I believe that it's really natural for you to feel like you want to give up at one point. I mean, we're humans, we have a capacity. I remember the first time I wanted to give up was at the beginning, and it was completely my fault, because I went into it feeling that I was going to be discriminated against. I'm not going to be taken seriously, not just as a woman, but also as an Arab woman coming into this global industry, which is recognized for, the Japanese and the Koreans being the main developers. And it happens every now and then. It's like, once, sometimes we face obstacle of people not understanding our industries, investors not understanding how the cycle goes. But at the end of the day, me and my partner, we have each other to support each other. And if we're both going to give up, we just call our mothers and go like, Mama, we want to give up. And then we hear the lecture of all the time that you spent, all the effort that you spent, you can't give up, you know, the usual mother prep talk. And that just gets us back up to remember who we are and why we're actually doing this.
Very right. Najma, what do you do to keep getting encouraged or stay motivated?
One thing that keeps us going when we're feeling down or when we don't, basically we feel like stuck at certain points, or why are we doing this, or going back to questioning why did we start, why are we doing this, is actually just interacting with people that we work with. So the employers that we've helped find talent for their teams, the job seekers that found jobs. So just going back to those interactions, actually talking to them, checking up on them, like, are you okay? Do you like the job you're at? Is your employee doing well? And then getting the feedback from them and just having those conversations is what motivates us. So just believing that we somehow, in some way, small way, impacted these people's lives. So that's one source of motivation. The other is basically just looking back at how far we've come. So it's been a few years now. So looking back where we started, where we are at today, yes, we might have had our challenges. We might have certain failures, certain decisions that we could have done differently. There is all of that, but then with that comes a lot of knowledge that we gained, a lot of learning experiences that we gained. And yeah, just going we have to make it worth the while. Like all the years that we spent has to be worth something now. So it's just going back to that.
Perfect. Sheikha Latifa, how about you? How do you get encouraged and stay motivated?
Yeah, very similar actually to Najma. I think, you know, we've all faced challenges along the way. And so it's definitely, you know, dips in the journey. It's not always high like some people like to perceive. You know, I think what I try to do is I try to keep myself preoccupied with, you know, inspirational books, quotes that I, you know, keep reading to kind of uplift me when times are a bit, you know, tough. And I think sometimes you just need to be your own cheerleader, right? You just need to keep your goals top of mind. You need to remind yourself of why you're doing this in the first place. And I think, you know, at the end of the day, like they say, you know, it's not a sprint, it's a marathon, right? So you just kind of have to have that mental toughness to push through some dark days. And, you know, if we're being honest, it's not always, you know, rainbow and sunshine, right? There will be times when, you know, you're not motivated, but once you're interacting with the team, once you're back in the office, you can't show that to the rest of your team. You have to bring your A game all the time and really be that, be that sunshine as well. So I think, yeah, just inspirational books go a long way.
Very true, very true. So before we move to the questions and answers, I've got another 2 questions that I want to go around and get everybody's opinion on it. The first one would be, what advice would you give to other men or women who are looking to start up their tech startups in Bahrain? So I think I'll go again. Najma, I'll start with you. What kind of advice would you give?
I think the one thing would be, don't overthink things. Just begin, get started, make your mistakes, do things over. Obviously, you're not going to nail it the first time. So don't expect to do that, to be honest. Usually, a lot of people, the challenge is just getting started because we want to start and have the perfect thing out there. But that's rarely ever the case. So yeah, just start. Start small. Start simple, but start.
And start. Let me ask you this. If you were to think about it, let me say one experience that you've been through and maybe a lesson that you came out when you were trying to build up your startup that you want people to avoid. Like, let's say a mistake that happened and you tell people not to do it.
I think that was our big thing because we really spent a lot of time and just a lot of research, build a business model without even having anything concrete yet. A lot of things we did that were not necessary, that were distracting. A lot of time and money went into building something that later had to be scrapped off and built all over again. because we didn't really know what we were getting into, what we were starting, because there was no, so we built right away. We didn't start small and simple. That was easy to kind of build upon. We built something. I was like, okay, no, this does not work. So yeah, it's just, then that took a lot of time and money out of our resources, which we already had very limited of. So yeah, I think the big lesson from that is start as small as you can, like as simple, as basic as you can, test it out, try it out, get it out there, and then just build on that. You're not going to have 100% built product on day one, never.
That's absolutely correct. Sheikha Latifa, how about you? What advice would you give?
Yeah, that's great advice, Najma. I would say pick a lane. And what I mean by this is don't just start a tech startup to start a tech startup, right? Rather go deep on the mission that you are, personally passionate about. Make sure that make sure that you are the best at what you do, and make sure that you get as much, skills you gain along the way as well. So be so good that they come to you for expertise. I think that's very important. Have that learner mindset that you're not gonna know it all, but you can be a learn it all, right? You can learn along the way. You can learn as you go. You don't necessarily have to have all the answers to be able to just start. So take that learner mindset and pick a lane. Focus on that. Get so good at what you do, and the world will definitely recognize you.
Awesome. And I would ask again the same question, something that you've learned from and you wouldn't repeat. If you go back, you wouldn't repeat it and you would advise people with it.
I would say overthink.
Something the other way around as well. It's something you've done and you think that it has worked 100% and you'd advise people to do.
I took a leap of faith.
You took a leap of faith.
I took a leap of faith because the reality of the matter is, the idea of Clever Play started even before, it launched, in our minds at least 2 years. And so we kind of stalled and didn't start because, we had, doubts about whether or not we'd be able to make this happen or work. And so imagine lost time, 2 years of, being able to start, but not being able to, because internally we were standing in our own way. So I would say, silence that, self-doubt that, because we all go through this, on different occasions. And sometimes all you have to do is take a leap of faith, and to echo Najma, start. You're never going to be ready to start a business or to, create the project we've always wanted to create, but you can always start small and then, build up along the way and take one step into the journey.
And I just want to add up because I think we've worked close together and I've had the pleasure of working with you, and you are very passionate about what you do, and that shows in it. And because of that passion that shows, people tend to trust your journey and go with it because they can see that there is a huge passion that backs that up, that can, cause it to flourish. So I completely agree. I think passion about the thing is very, very important. Nouf, last but not least, I would ask exactly the same questions. What advice would you give? And then what is it that you've done through when you were starting your startup, a mistake or something that you've done that you think people should either avoid or really emphasize on?
Sure. My advice is very simple. Number one, do your research. Number two, understand the sacrifices that you will have to give through the entire process. And then just grab a friend and go. That's literally how we started. We did our research. We tried to gain as many knowledge as we can. And as my colleague said, we just take a leap of faith, but we have the weapons. So we're not going to a battle not knowing anything. You arm yourself, talk to yourself internally that you're ready for it, grab as many friends as you can, family members, and then just go ahead and do it. A great example was as we were starting the planning of making Regnum official, because we used to make games just for fundies and university projects. I was lucky that I got an opportunity to work in a company called Alkhalifa Esports, where it explores the other aspects of the gaming industry. So now I have the knowledge of not how to make the games and not only how to like advertise it, but how to build a community and make like talk to clients, make events around them. So I gained more knowledge. My like what I would recommend, if you can go and get more experience from someone, go ahead. It doesn't matter if it's local, abroad, just gain as much as knowledge as you can. You can never go wrong with knowing a lot. I mean, the more the better, right?
That is absolutely correct. And actually, since you're mentioning this, I think I would like to ask another question. What is the importance role of having a mentor in this? Do you think that plays an important role in your startup? Would you advise people to go and get a mentor?
Yes, I would highly recommend it. And it could be anyone. It doesn't have to be someone with a doctor's degree or something. It could be someone that you look up to, someone that could be either helping you from a business perspective or even just an emotional support. Your mentor could be the person that teaches you the soft skill and how to improve yourself as a human being. Your mentor can be someone that will teach you, or not teach you. For example, our mentor was more of Christus. If we go with a question, he will say, "Oh, that's a good question. What do you think the answer would be?" So that's the kind of mentor you need. You don't need a mentor that tells you 1, 2, 3, but a mentor that tells you, maybe you can try this, or what do you think? So I think it's a very, very important thing for you to have.
A mentor.
Yes.
Very good. So before we wrap up, my last question is, we started with asking, do you think that women are fairly represented in the tech field in Bahrain? And now after all of this discussion, I want to know, what do you think should be done for women to be more represented in the tech field in Bahrain? What is required more? What is it that the ecosystem could do more? What is it that people around could do more? Or what is it that we could do more to represent the women better in the tech field in Bahrain?
I think it begins more with visibility first. So workshops like this, more sessions and events and programs that are centered around women, just to show that there are women in the field that are there, they're working hard, they're doing things, and just showcasing those stories, providing visibility to them. And that's how I think that would create kind of a ripple effect of, like Latifa earlier mentioned, you see what you become. Basically, yes, just showcasing that, making sure that women have their spaces, we have spaces to kind of interact with each other, learn from each other. Also because sometimes our challenges might be different. So we really need to have our spaces where we talk about our challenges, our stories, our learnings from each other. So yeah, I think this is a great step towards that direction.
Great. Nouf, do you want to add up to what Najma was saying?
What I would say is, for all the women that are now, you've done your startup, like people like me, people like all of us, that we need to shine as bright as possible to give hope to those who are, the ones are in the background. So what we're doing now in the community, for example, when I'm traveling, I showcase other girls, I showcase the work of other developers, other musicians, I showcase the art and try to build that connection. So it's not, I don't think it's a responsibility of only the ecosystem to support women or women to learn, but women also supporting each other. So we need to be more compassionate. Need to be more supportive to each other rather than competing. And we're competing in a market that still did not mature yet. So us being together, this is a very good example when it comes to game development studios. So rather than me fighting another studio, we can team up. And then when the market is mature enough and big enough, then we can, go our separate way, or maybe continue working together, no. But I think that it relies on, it's our responsibility to try and do our best and make it easier for the people that are coming next.
Okay, perfect. Sheikha Latifa?
Yeah, I echo everything that was said, and I would add, it would be really cool to have like community events that are just for females in this space, just to to what Najma was saying, that we all have our own set of challenges, and it would be really a great learning opportunity to be able to tap into all of these amazing women we have here in Bahrain who are in the tech field and learn from them firsthand. So I think, more community initiatives in particular, for females in this space where we can come together, learn from one another, encourage one another, etc. I think that would be really helpful.
Perfect. Awesome. Thank you, ladies. I'm going to open the space now for Q&A. I think I've got a couple of questions, so let me just go through them. Saba was asking about the workshop series and if there is any particular requirements and basic skills to attend. As far as I know, this is open to all women, Bahraini women, and no particular set of basic skills are required. To register, you can go on the Startup Magazine website or Instagram. I think the link is there for registration. The second question that I see here is, which is the difficult stage in setting up a business from your experience? So who would like to answer this? And I've got this question from Muna Doi. What was the most difficult stage in setting up a business?
I think from my side, I believe one of the most difficult ones were actually creating a schedule where like time management was the biggest problem. For you to actually sit there and plan, these are my working days, but then I'm sacrificing family days, I'm sacrificing another job. So like if you were someone like me who has a day job and a night job, trying to like believing in yourself and taking that leap was the most difficult thing. To say, yes, people will understand, my friends will understand if I don't hang out with them. And trusting in the people around you in your support system that they will be there for you.
Anybody else would like to give their point of view on this one?
I think, there are different challenges in the different, I guess the different phases, right? So maybe in the early phase, setting it up, just going through the permits and all that stuff. It takes a little bit of time, but really, I mean, it comes with its own kind of set of challenges. Once you overcome those, new challenges will come up. So I think it's really, maybe for us, I think probably the biggest one at the early stage I'd say probably finding the team. Finding the team was a tough one for us to start out with, finding the right team, because at the end of the day, that's the DNA that's going to represent your company. And you don't want to kind of, just randomly choose the people that you want to bring onto your ship, right? So you want to make sure that they are the right people with the right values, who believe in your mission and who will help you, bring your mission to life. And so I think that was for us, at least in the early stages. I think the most difficult challenge in the early days. Yeah.
Okay. So I've got another question that says about starting up. If you started and you felt that something went wrong, do you restart again? Do you continue, or do you give up? Who wants to take that? Najma, I think since you said that, you guys went through the loop of doing things that you didn't require, maybe you could answer this.
I think it really depends on where you are at, or how small or how big you are and how fast can you move. So the leaner you are, the faster you can make changes. But once you realize something is not working, I think the instant reaction should be to stop doing that. And not investing a lot more effort and trying and hoping that it might someday work. So if you see something is not in line with where you are planning to go, it just does not fit into your business model, some things just don't make sense, just don't do them. Just eliminate that and focus on something else. And the smaller you are as a team, because this happens a lot in this earlier stages of a business. But so the smaller you are, the faster you can make these changes, the faster you can chuck things and edit and push new things. I think, that would be the main thing. But once something starts working, instead of just trying and investing more on it and fixing it, it's just like, why is it not working? And then do something different. Yeah.
We would like to add something on this, that would you give up? And I think I've asked Nouf this, that if you wanted to give up, and you said definitely there was a couple of times, but you continue on going. So do you want to add to that question?
I would only recommend, the same thing, it really depends on which stage you're in, the size of the company you're doing, or even the project that you're doing. So when you're having a startup, it's initially a project that you're trying to expand on. I think this is where you need to teach yourself like the important skills like critical thinking and knowing how to analyze the data and trying to figure out why something went wrong, but not to invest a long time into trying to figure it out. If it's not working out because it's not the right audience, then go like, okay, so what's the right audience? So you need to first understand what went wrong so that you don't repeat it in a different scenario. And I would rather have mistakes done at the beginning rather than midway or in the end, where the impact would be it will be more difficult for you to try and troubleshoot the problems once you go like global, for example. So, but yeah, and if you want to give up, you need to talk to someone. Talk to someone, talk to your friends, talk to your parents, talk to like your kids, talk to anyone around you, and just let it out. Because usually it's just a frustration that wants you to give up. It's not because something is wrong, it's just you're frustrated or you're not looking at it from the right perspective. Usually when we do our testing, for example, for our games, we bring in fresh blood just so that they see it from a different perspective and try to figure it out. Then if that doesn't work out, then we consider maybe fixing it or putting it on pause, move on, and then we can come back to it to, it's like, like a case study for us to understand never to do this again with a client or never to do this with an investor and so on.
And I think there is nothing wrong with starting up again. Like even if you don't succeed in the first time, you learn from your mistakes and you go through the whole cycle and fix where you've been wrong. I think I've got one more question, which is Harish is asking if there are any special incentives that the government is offering to women entrepreneurs in particular. I'm honestly not aware of that. Maybe you guys have more experience with this.
Yeah, I think, obviously Temkeen is a great supporter. And so, we went through Temkeen ourselves, so you can go through Temkeen. But there's also the Riyadat. So Riyadat is basically like an incubation center for females only, especially in the early stages of your startup. So you can go through them, and if you need a space, like a physical space, and usually their prices are not as competitive as out there. So that's also one. I'm just trying to think, ladies, are there any others as well?
I think the support is there for both women and men, like when it comes to Temkeen. So there is a lot of support going on right now. I'll move to the next question, and I think this is an interesting one, is how do you manage your personal life and your business life?
That's a very, very good question. That's, again, one of the first things that you have to think about when you want to start your own business is how can you separate them and how can you make sure that they don't at one point get into a conflict of each other. Number one, I would recommend that before you start your business, make sure that you have the right support system around you, that you have people that are understanding, that will not take offense if you say, sorry, I can't hang out today. We've been through that as university students. We lost a couple of friends because we didn't have the time, but at the same time, they weren't a part of the support system. So it made it a bit difficult for us to hang on to them. And then we had to prioritize, do I want to hang out or do I want to, launch the first testing phase of the game? And the way you do it is very, very simple. Write down what are your personal priorities, what are your business priorities. If they connect, fantastic. And if they don't, just work on a schedule and make sure that you have one day just for yourself, even away from your teammates, just your own Zen moment.
Nice, I like that. And let me see. So anybody wants to add on to what Nouf was saying?
Yeah, on that question, actually, I recently read something that's quite interesting. One of my inspirational political figures is Winston Churchill, and the last book that I read kind of mentioned something interesting about him. So obviously, Winston Churchill, he was a former prime minister of Great Britain during the World War II, but he was also a writer and he was also an artist, a painter. So not many people know this about him. And so when someone asked him, how is it that you were able to go through probably one of the toughest times in history, World War II? And he said it goes down to energy conservation. And what he meant by this is that you can't always be on go, go, go mode. You have to learn when to stand, but you also have to learn when to sit and conserve energy and rest. And I think that's super, eye-opening and important to realize that, yes, in entrepreneurship, it's not about holding your breath and seeing how long you can go, but really making sure that, you're taking breaths, obviously, along the way. Sometimes you take longer and deeper breaths. Sometimes you take a little bit shorter breaths, but you keep on breathing through the process. And so it's important to be able to make time for energy conservation, know when you have to be on go mode, and when you have to rest and play and, uh, bring back that positive energy as well. So I just thought I'd share that because for me, I think it was a great takeaway from the book. So thought I'd share.
That's very interesting. I think that goes back to, for me, it's about putting boundaries, right? Whether boundaries for yourself and boundaries for others. Najma, would you like to say anything in the same question, or you want me to move to the next one?
Yeah, I think I agree with all the points mentioned. Boundaries is a big one. Also understanding your own limitations, understanding your own energy levels, understanding when you need to take a break, why, if it's not working and you're trying to focus, but you don't have the energy for it, understanding that, okay, it's time for me to maybe take a step back, regain, reconcentrate, refocus, come back at it. So yeah, just managing your energy levels, understanding your own self, what environments you work best in, what environments trigger you, what situations trigger you, saying yes and no to certain opportunities. Yeah, I think just prioritizing what matters for yourself and for your business.
Awesome. I think I've got a couple of more questions, so I'll go through them a little bit quicker. So I've got a question that says, how systematic should the first steps of starting a business be like? Let me ask Nouf this. I'm gonna give each one of you one and go through all the questions. So Nouf, what do you think?
I think it really depends on what kind of a startup you're trying to make, and also the way you are planning it. If you're working with people that are very organized and they like to write everything down, then go for it. Just work with a system where everyone is happy with. So it's not just you dictating how the business is going to run, but it's a collective, everyone in the team is putting their input and telling you how it should be done, and then seeing which one would work with everyone. So you try it, if it works, it works. If it doesn't, you change. So it's a trial and error kind of thing.
Awesome. Sheikha Latifa, this one I think I'm going to ask you. The question goes like, what can be done intentionally to raise awareness for young girls to become more interested in tech?
Thank you for that question. Great. All right. Well, I think first and foremost, like I said, I think it's important to be able to give young girls opportunities to be able to test out what careers in technology can look like and feel like. And so what that means really is giving them early exposure to STEM and STEAM education, to digital education, to tech education, so that they can start to realize that they can be just as cool as the boys and join that field. So I think that's very important from a parental awareness, a public awareness standpoint. It's important to be able to get girls involved in these kinds of things, and not just into like the traditional ballet or you know, swimming or whatever else, you know, girls do. That's great. I mean, I'm all for making sure that, you know, the girl is also well-rounded and gets, you know, exposure to different things. But this too is very important. In fact, like a lot of the studies actually come out and say that girls that have a lot of access to, you know, STEM and STEAM education early and have positive exposure are more likely to pursue, you know, STEM and tech fields in the future. And it all goes back to their early experiences, building that confidence early on, building those skill sets early on. So I think from a parental point of view, it's important to be able to enrich their kids early in this kind of, you know, educational endeavors.
Endeavors. Awesome. Najma, I'll ask you the next question, which I think I'm going to merge two questions in one. So I've got a question that says, how can you look into the startups that you're doing with the obstacles? So you've got obstacles like financial difficulties, convincing people around you with your ideas, your friends, your family. How do you get over that? Both the emotional and the financial side of it.
Okay. Well, it's more of a, it's something you just build resilience to over time. Like obviously the first time you believe in something and you're really excited about something, you present it to someone, and if they criticize it or if they knock you down, I mean, it is going to be a big hit. But over time, you just build resilience to it. And actually, I think that's a great way of learning, because if it's something just between people who are cheering you on and just friends who are telling you, yes, great idea, go ahead, do that, and no one is questioning or criticizing you, you're not really learning, you're not challenging yourself. So the more you face these situations, the more you come up with answers and solutions to those questions. And yeah, it's just over time you build resilience. And it's always keeping in mind that your business is not who you are. It's two different entities, and always remembering that, because sometimes we tend to forget it. Sometimes we take even something as small as a comment on your business's Instagram handle, you take it personally, like, how could someone say that to me? And when we forget that it's not directed to you as a person, but to the business or the product. And the product is there to help people, to serve people. And you should always be open to any sorts of criticisms, questions, feedbacks, and always welcome those. So yeah, always stay open to those, and yeah, distinguish. It's not directed to you. If someone is not funding you, if someone is not buying your product, if someone is not subscribing, does not mean you as a person are failing. It's just a product may have certain places that it could use improvement. So yeah, it's just always remembering that. I think that's a big one.
Perfect. And I think that comes to the end of all the questions, and we're sort of out of time, so I don't want to take more of your times, ladies. Thank you so much. It was a pleasure talking to all of you and getting to know your point of views on a lot of things. I wish you the best of luck. Thank you so much for having me host you today, and thank you, Startup Magazine. Thank you to our audience, and inshallah, we'll see you in more gatherings to come. Bye-bye.
Thank you, Shane.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye.